welcome everyone back to the Dang Right podcast with Coach Nally. I'm your host, Coach Nally. I want to thank Max and everyone back there that does all the work to make this podcast possible. I want to thank Mr. Kramen and all the students, like I said, that he teaches and whatnot to put this together every week. I want to thank Trevor Van Dam, but he's not here today.
Yeah, where is he, Coach
I don't
Nally?
know. I mean, Max, what the heck, man? That's your job to keep up with the help,
Oh,
Max.
wait, so you don't know where he is?
I don't.
Oh, I do.
Where's he at?
You see, Trevor likes to stay current with Trevor Van Dam. If you're not aware, is our stadium steward,
Yes.
and he is an expert in all things studio and broadcast and live stream, and he likes to stay current. And so he's at a convention trying to stay up on what's current in the video world. That convention happens to be in Vegas.
Oh, well, good for Trevor.
Yeah. Now I wasn't
Good
invited.
for yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, our guest today is Mr. Kramen.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, heck
Coach
yeah,
Nally. I
man.
appreciate it.
And the thing is Mr. Kramen does an unbelievable job with our kids. And I'm not just saying that. I get to see it every time I come in here. But the thing about this podcast is, me and Mr. Kramen go back a long way with it, putting it together. So it is awesome to have you on the podcast because, every week I thank you and whatnot, just because, it's kind of we had talked about old school before this started. Mr. Kramen, you're old school when it comes to this podcast. So thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thanks so much, Coach Nally, and thank you also for like framing that in the context of this podcast, and not just because of the fact that I'm got a Chrome Dome.
Well, at least you got chrome on the dome. I got nothing. So, but with that said, that we always have the same question first. So tell me the saga that is Randall Kramen.
Well, that's wow. Where to start? Um, it's a privilege every day to walk into my classroom and to be able to put on the cape to be
Dang
Mr.
right.
Kramen.
Dang
It
right.
really is.
Dang right.
And I do this job because I didn't have someone like me there for me, providing something like this when I was in high school.
Right.
Um, but that's not why I got into teaching in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just flash back.
Yeah, let's do it.
But okay, so imagine a picture, if you will, a young Mr. Kramen. There are two things growing up that I enjoyed immensely on in the whole like writing and media side. One tradition that my dad had. I'm one of the last analog kids. Like I used to get like
Dang right.
a newspaper delivered to my
Dang
door
right, man.
every day. And now you ask people, your kids,
Right.
like, what's a newspaper? Like, well, I
Right.
don't know. But like, I remember my dad would always sit at the kitchen table and he'd be like, reading the newspaper and enjoying a cup of coffee.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And like that became for me, a tradition. And I'd read sports and I'd read entertainment. I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea what was going on the front page. Didn't really care.
Right.
But it's one of those things that's just like, this kind of tradition kind of was born of of a love of reading and writing and a love of my dad. But even though I really, really like newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
first love was always film.
Dang right.
Flashing even earlier, where what I could barely read at like 5 or 6. Right, my dad comes and picks me up on a May afternoon in the middle of the school day, pulls me out of school and takes me to the premiere of Return of the Jedi.
Dang right, dude.
And so this was back when you had theaters that only had like 8 screens. This was in San Antonio. I moved to Dallas when I was like 6. Um, and so this is in San Antonio. The Plitt Theater, right, it was at the bottom of this like white gravel valley.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And when we got there, we got at the back of the line and we could see that the line snaked all the way around the building. There wasn't like, you know, reserved seats.
Yeah,
You couldn't
yeah,
purchase in advance. You couldn't
yeah.
show up at the last minute. We showed up at the last minute. We had to wait in line all the way around the building. And we just barely got into the theater just as the crawl was coming up, managed to worm our way to like, just like center house, like just a few rows from the back. and it was just an amazing experience. That is the first memory that I have of seeing
That's awesome,
a
man.
movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that my dad thought it was special enough to like
Yeah.
pull me out of school in the middle of the
Yeah.
day, like that was one of my great loves.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, right, they didn't have AV production in 1993.
Yeah.
That wasn't a possibility. But they did have school newspaper, and so I worked for the Eagle Talon
Yeah.
at Richardson High School,
Dang right.
and Sarah Scott was my sponsor, like the teacher and editor, and so I excelled in that, and had this desire to like write and create and
Yeah.
perform, like
Heck yeah.
that whole piece was like satisfied. And so I kind of followed that whole line. So I went to the University of Texas and for magazine journalism, and I worked for the Daily Texan up there, and then after that worked for the Fort Star Telegram on the sports desk. And and these things were amazing, like in um, on Friday Night Football, right?
Mhm.
All of the action was between like 11:15 and 12:15. In that
Yeah.
compressed hour, I have all these stories flying into the page, trying to
Yeah.
get everything right and trying to send it out. That whole
Yeah.
production experience was electric.
Yeah. Heck
And
yeah.
and all the people that we worked with up there at the sports desk at the time, and this was in 99, 2000. All the people who worked up there, they were so cool. Everybody was a
Yeah. Heck
bro.
yeah.
Like it was just like it was like a whole like collegial environment, and so being part of that production experience, that was really, really cool, right? But in the middle of the summer, when there's nothing going on in sports, we'd
Yeah.
show up for our shift at 4 o'clock. We'd
Yeah.
have a brief meeting about what goes on the page, and then we'd do virtually nothing for like 5.5, six
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
And I found that like, drawing boxes on a page and filling them with type wasn't exactly what I got into, you know, the
Right.
field for.
Right.
It seemed like a dead end for me. So the editor up there at the time, Celeste Williams, was really like so cool because she like let me go part time so I could keep this kind of high end, part time
Yeah.
salary
Heck yeah.
to go back to school at your alma mater,
Dang right.
North
Dang
Texas.
right.
So I went back to North Texas for film and video, and I took their advanced sequence twice, once as a producer, once as a director, and then off of that experience, try to find um, indie jobs here in the Metroplex, but just there's not a whole lot of work here.
Yeah.
There's only one place that you can go if you really want to, make your way uh, in film production, and that's LA. So in the summer of 2004, I moved out there with my fiance, who is now my wife.
Dang right, dude. I didn't know you went to LA, dude. That's cool, bro.
Yeah, I went out there for 9 months, and I interned for Bedford Falls, for Beacon Pictures, and also for a company at DreamWorks.
Sweet,
And
man.
so for 9 months, I was in the DreamWorks story department, kind of getting to see how the business actually operated, and it's like a dream come true, right?
Yeah.
You're
Heck
driving
yeah.
into the Universal Studio lot with your little badge, and like, I mean, I'm. Have you been to Universal Studios in
No.
LA?
No,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
No.
So Universal Studios is an operating theme park in the front, but in the back, it's a working back lot. So all these sound stages and studios, like at the time, like in DreamWorks is like kind of tucked away in the back. It's like this little like Adobe rotunda, this like two-story rotunda that has like these twin staircases that go up in either direction. On my first day on the job as an intern, right? They bring me in and they point to the left stairs and they say, "These are Steven's stairs.
Well,
You
that's some pressure. Yeah.
you don't go near
Yeah.
Steven's stairs. You don't know. We don't walk up Steven's stairs. You don't so much as look at Steven's stairs. These are Steven stairs."
Mhm.
Steven Spielberg's office was literally like right up there, and just around the corner, he's got like there's like a private theater in there, and across from it, they've got the kitchen where they make stuff, and there's a whole like breakfast bar there with like every kind of like sugary cereal imaginable, from like Cocoa Puffs to like the Lucky Charms,
Yeah. Heck yeah.
and just anyway, um,
But don't go up Steven stairs.
don't go anywhere near Steven stairs. But what's really cool, is like you're in an environment where there's such competition to try to get the businesses and projects launched. But it's funny, like so it was amazing to see like all the ideas flying in, and as an intern I got to read a bunch of stuff, and you know, because they let me read the garbage, right? Because like the creative assistants, they
Yeah.
all keep the stuff for them, but we just want to make sure that this isn't total crap. So you intern, take your
Yeah.
time on that, or
Yeah.
here, read this 1,000-page book and let me know if we need to do anything with that. So maybe sometimes keep me busy, but what was really interesting was like, you know, just I worked, so the DreamWorks like rotunda is there, and it's ringed by all these little bungalows, these little houses, and they're about the size of the studio, and they're like cut in half, where like you can fit two producers in, and their creative assistants, and a little kitchenette, and a restroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like um, and what was interesting is like these are literally on the Universal Studios like tram tour.
Oh,
So
sweet. Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day, the
Yeah.
same like,
Yeah.
and it's not a recording. It's like a guy like actually reading out on his little whatever intercom PA as the tram is winding through. He's like, and every year in Hollywood there are tens of thousands of scripts submitted, but there's only 100 projects in. And so you get the sense that like that quantity, and you know this from your football program, quantity is quality.
Correct.
When you've got a pipeline and you've got
Correct.
numbers, then like the top percentage is going to
Right.
be your elite. And so Hollywood doesn't gamble. Like they purchase tens of thousands, they read tens of thousands of things. They purchase thousands of things, and then they develop hundreds of things, and then they only like actually produce
Isn't that crazy?
12.
That's wild.
And it is. But look, we do that with our program too. Like we have competitive pitch sessions, which then not all of them get produced. Only a
Hmm.
percentage of those get
Right.
produced, and of those whatever 7, 8 films that are there, there's one gem.
Right.
We know it numbers
Right.
wise, in the same
Right.
way that you know that for your defensive line, your offensive line, or your
Right.
skill positions.
Right.
Um, but in hearing these statistics as an intern, it's pretty daunting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, towards the end of the internship, the next step from being like a studio intern in the story department reading scripts, the next step is to be a creative assistant. Well, these creative assistants that I work for in this office, right? I saw what they did. And if you think coaching hours are tough, if you think teaching hours are tough, these people work 80-hour weeks. And part of their job is to go to dinner and drinks with other single available creative assistants in order to drum up business in any way they can.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't do that.
And if I
Yep.
want to start a family,
Right.
I know that my clock is ticking,
Right.
and I'm going out there, when I'm like 27.
Right.
And so, is this a realistic thing anymore?
Right.
Had to make some choices, and brother, I chose my wife,
Dang right you did.
and that was the right decision.
Dang right. Absolutely. 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 Um, well, with that being said, why are you Mr. Kramen the teacher?
Aha, there we go. We'll get there. So I come home, and I don't know what my next step is. But I see, wait a second, teaching. When I initially got into it, it was not from a selfless reason at all. I looked at it like, oh, wait, they've got summers off and they've got all
Yeah.
these holidays. I
Yeah.
can still work on my stuff on the side here. And then this could be my day job. And then I could still have my side hustle here with film and all that stuff, right? It took one class period to change everything.
Got to hear it.
I walk into a portable classroom, and this is an hour east of us in Greenville, Texas,
Yeah.
at Phoenix Charter School. And I was living in Frisco.
Oh, wow. Golly, bro.
And I walk into that classroom, and instantly, it couldn't be about me anymore. It had to be about the people in the room.
Hmm. Yeah.
You feel that sense of duty. You
Yeah.
feel that that responsibility to those kids, the connection that you have, and the power that you have to do good for them.
Dang
And
right.
everything else that I had hoped to do with the job or use the job for, all those things fell by the wayside.
Right. Right.
It changed me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that, but that's a sign of purpose. That's the sign of divine divinity. You know what I'm saying? Like, here we go. This is what you're born to do. Max, I feel like we need like a song there at the end of that. Like that monologue that he just gave was amazing. Like we should have a song as he's speaking going behind it. That was awesome. That was unbelievable.
And can I say too that like, I worked at that charter school for 9 years, and I would not have left it had it not closed.
Oh, really?
So charters are held to this three strikes law in Texas, that if you held those same, that same standard to some ISDs, we'd have a few closures of ISDs. But they had like one bad math score, two reports that were accurate but filed late, and they got the axe.
Oh, wow, man.
So, and from that, I was looking for a job, got a job at Anna, like created the film, a program up there for 6 years, then came here, to Melissa, and what's really great about being here is that same sense of like duty and responsibility and doing the best that you can for your kids and rowing the boat and growing every
Dang right.
day. That there are so many people, on this campus, who share that, who are like minded about that, and you don't have to wonder if the person in the neighboring classroom, is doing what the village should be doing for the
Right.
kids. We're all
Right.
in on the same thing.
Right. Right. It definitely is a special place. Well, man, you've answered a lot of my questions, you
Well,
know?
you can ask me my favorite movies next.
Dang,
You
man.
can ask me LA stories too if you want them.
Okay, I want to know. Let's talk about this because a lot of people don't know that. Yes, I love like um, Ace Ventura. I
Yep.
love Tommy Boy. I love those
Mhm.
movies, and yeah, I like grunge music. But a lot of people don't know that I really. And I'm going to say this like I brought up gardening, so I'm going to bring it up anyways. But
Okay.
like, I really like classical music.
Yep.
I like just and I love listening to drums and I love listening to just the piano.
Okay.
I love it. So, with that being said, I want to hear your top 5 movies of all time, and
Okay.
then I'm gonna give you mine.
Okay. That is extremely difficult
Yes,
question
yes,
to
I know.
answer.
Yes.
All I can do is I can go by maybe by genre, and I
That's
can
cool.
give you maybe my top three in each.
Cool beans.
Okay, so let's start with some obvious things, like so fantasy and adventure.
Mhm.
Obviously, Star Wars, and I'll rank those for you real quick because I know you're going to ask. Um, Empire for me is still tops,
Okay.
but Revenge of the Sith I think is now equivalent to New Hope for me.
Mhm.
And then behind that, Return of the Jedi, and then underneath, obviously Attack of the Clones, and then Phantom Menace, probably the last. But the more that I watch the prequels, the more that they grow on me because George Lucas absolutely nails the story, even if like the way in which like he deals with actors, they're as wooden as his like
Right.
grand CGI pieces, and it doesn't always seem like it's realistic. Like the story itself that's underneath it is all gold.
Mhm.
I don't watch 7, 8, 9 anymore. My kids actually refuse to watch 7, 8, 9 just because you know there's some really talented hands on that, from the writing end, from the directing end. That was a trilogy that was, like, choked to death by committee. There's too many folks trying to, please too many people, and when you have to start the 3rd movie with Palpatine has returned, well, come on. I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. I'm
I
out. I'm out.
agree. I
I'm done.
thought that was a
I'm
little
done.
bit,
I'm out.
we're stretching
I'm
it.
out. I'm out.
But I did like, I mean, the one thing I do like about 789, I really like the Kylo Ren character. I
Yeah,
do.
I
I
mean,
really
listen,
like
there
him.
was so much promise with, I think, with
Yes.
Force Awakens. There's a lot of promise. I was annoyed the fact that we're kind of aping too much what happened in the other, the original
Mhm.
4, 5, 6. But um,
And I think Adam Driver is an amazing
yeah.
actor.
Oh, no
That's
question,
that's why
no
I
question.
really was he's what drew me to that, when you would watch, 7, that's what drew me to watch 8 and drew me to watch 9 was
Sure,
his character and the way
sure.
that he portrayed it.
Right, but the
Alright.
inconsistencies in story and tone, it just, I don't know. I guess I need to be more, I don't know, more accepting, but I don't know if my kids don't wanna watch it, then that's a litmus test for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
So, but speaking of things that I watch with my kids, like, so that's we do that, the Star Wars movies every May the 4th, we start them, and then, of course, our schedules are really
you got
busy, so we
to.
finish them sometime in
Yeah,
June.
you got to though.
But every Thanksgiving, that's the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit
Mhm,
marathon,
mhm.
and, there's actually a LOTR, scrapbook.net, where they have like, Hobbit recipes. So I'll like, whip up, stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it was just, I don't know, just loosely like,
yeah,
named for characters in the film. And, we'll take a nice long marathon, with the kids for that one too. So, and then of course, like, the indie trilogy as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
I think so. That was in terms of like fantasy and adventure, there's that. For comedy, Here's my top 3. And I really thought about this one. Um, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
It's a great one. It's an unbelievable one.
Yes.
I literally watched it with my wife maybe a month ago.
Okay. Yeah, best road picture of all time in my view. In addition to being a great comedy, and John Candy and Steve Martin in their prime.
Mhm.
Um, the second on my list is being remade this summer, and so it's Naked Gun from the Files of Police
Yeah, I
Squad.
saw the, preview the other day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know I haven't seen the preview for the new one.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna be open minded because I think the world of Liam Neeson.
100%.
But
Yes.
but look, Leslie Nielsen is a genius to be able to deliver things, because like comedy is always like this. It's this two-handed thing, just like the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where you have Steve Martin is kind of like the straight man, kind of tight,
Mhm. Yep.
and then you've got this guy who's like a goofball, right?
Yep.
Whatever. Leslie Nielsen was able to achieve both within like the same person.
Mhm.
There are some scenes in which he plays Frank,
Yeah.
straight, and it's hilarious. And
Yes.
others where he's like just like comically like reacting to what's going on, and it's also equally hilarious. And then my third, I had a real hard time here, but it has to be a Mel Brooks title, and it has to be Blazing Saddles.
It's a great one too.
Yeah,
It's a great one too.
Spaceballs was close.
Spaceballs, I'm gonna tell you something. So I'm gonna go back to the Naked Gun. So the Naked Gun, Coach Pickup and myself. Coach Pickup can quote any movie, by the way,
Fantastic,
but we'll go back and forth with Naked Gun quotes, back
fantastic.
and forth.
Me and my best friend too.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. Spaceballs is a show that it takes me back. I mean, it was obviously when I was a kid, I watched it, but my two oldest sons got into it. And my two oldest sons would do like back and forth, like when Dark Helmet, is like ludicrous
It's
speed. They can
fantastic.
go through that entire scene
It's
and it's
fantastic.
awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, everybody's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Smoke if you got them.
That's
You
the
know
one.
what I mean?
There's some other things I wanted to quote from that scene that I will not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm not as high on the horror genre, but from horror directors, like I got like there's I like some oddball stuff. So like John Carpenter's They Live. Did you ever see that with Rod
Mm-mm,
Roddy Piper? That
mm-mm.
one's fantastic.
Is that like when he's fighting aliens or like people are like lizards or something?
Okay, so you're loosely describing what could also be V the Final Battle, which happened on television. It's something similar, but it's something similar type of story where it's this like drifter who's like down and out, right? And it's like this, like the economy's gone down and things are kind of run down as post-apocalypse kind of thing. And this guy finds his glasses and then he puts
Yeah,
them
that's
on,
what it
and
is.
he's
I've
able to
seen it.
see
Yeah.
like that there's these
Yeah.
like these aliens that are like harvesting us and
Yeah.
whatever. I think it was interesting. In terms of Schwarzenegger movies, sorry, I'm just going all over the map.
No, go
Action
for
movies,
it.
Schwarzenegger movies, Predator, 100%.
Oh, Predator's great. It's great. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But golly, Kramer, all these movies are amazing, man.
Yeah, we could talk about this for
The
quite a
only
long
other
time.
comedy that I really like, and it's a must to in our house, is National Lampoon's Christmas
Oh,
Vacation.
100%.
Like we every Christmas we watched it. I mean, I'm going to say that me and my wife are probably bad parents, but we took all three of our boys to the theater and watched the
It's
original.
fantastic.
Oh man, it's golly, man. It's just my wife probably watches it 5 or 6 times a year. If it's on TV, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's in
Oh yeah.
July.
No.
We're watching
Oh yeah. No.
National Lampoon's Christmas
Yeah, I totally
Vacation.
get it. And isn't that wonderful that like now we do have this like movement on the part of some theaters to bring things back as repertory, so you can experience these things that you might have seen for the first time in your living room. Your kids
Right.
might have seen the first time in the living room. You're able to see it in a theater with other people who are also devoted to it. Because that's one of the things I think I miss from the movie going experience. There aren't you know uh, because I remember, in like the indie trilogy, like going to see Last Crusade, like people literally cheering in the
Right.
theater, or watching like Star Trek, like the Voyage Home when like they show you the new Enterprise and everybody gets happy that they're going,
Right.
they got back from Wrath of Khan and they
Right.
restored everything. Um, it's like just being able to share that with other people, almost as kind of a spiritual experience.
Right.
It's an amazing thing, and that you're not going to get that from sitting at home, kind of in your own
Right.
cubicle.
Well, and everything now like is streaming. So
Right.
like I mean, and I'll be the first one to say like we do that. We
Sure, I
not
do too.
just if a movie comes out, I'm like, hey guys, it's gonna be, on whatever in a month, and we'll just rent it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So
I mean, it's more convenient. It's easier to work in, and kind of multitask in with our lives and all that. But I think that, the movie going experience, for it to really have that magic, sometimes you do have to like surrender a little bit.
Mhm.
It's a suspension of disbelief and trusting this artist to take you to a place that you've not been before, and yet to show you something that's universal to you, up there on that screen. But you've got to be in a position where you're kind of forced to go along with the ride and not
Right.
be like distracted from it. And if you're there with other people who are feeling the same way, it's like, I don't know, they said there's some sort of aphorism that says like 100 people in a room in the dark are smarter than you as a writer. you know I think it's something along those
Yeah.
lines. It's like,
Yeah.
you have to always trust what the audience
Yeah.
kind of thinks and says, and to be able to experience that feeling,
Yeah.
of connectedness with it. It's a rare thing. I mean, just like a sporting event, right?
Yeah.
When you're watching your favorite team, and and it's a clutch moment in the game, and you're all cheering, and
Right.
and invested in that. It's very different when you're at home,
Right.
screaming at the television by yourself, and
Right.
your son tells you to shut up.
It's wild is for me, going to the movies was it was an experience that I shared. I have an older brother, and my parents are divorced, and we would go visit my biological dad in Indiana, and they had a theater. It's still there, but it's a one screen theater. And
Fantastic.
we would, now this is back in the 80s, so people bear with me, but I was probably about 8. And the first time, and it was just, we walked to the theater, and just me and my brother, and we would watch Star Wars, and then it would be like a 3 feature thing.
That is so
So
cool.
you'd watch Star Wars, and then you'd turn around and watch Indiana Jones, and then you would turn around and watch whatever. But it was just, we would stay there, and I can't remember what a ticket would cost, maybe 2 or $3, I don't
Yeah,
remember, but you'd stay there for 7 hours and eat popcorn and watch a movie. It's the same thing like going to the drive-in, and there's one, I think it's on the way to Waco, I can't remember where it's at, but it's the same experience, like you talk about the Lord of the Rings. When I think of Lord of the Rings, I think of my brother. Me and my brother went and watched those 3 movies in the theater. Obviously, I mean at that time streaming wasn't that big of a deal, but um, it's something like it brings you back to being a kid,
yeah, absolutely,
and
100%.
to me, when you're a kid and you're experiencing something, it is like at the most pure, you know what I mean? You see, we haven't really perverted anything, it's just the most, I don't know, awesome is the only word I can use. Awesomeness.
It's fantastic. And actually, like what you're talking about there, that whole like kind of Midwest, like small screen, like kind of experience. Like, so my dad's family is from Chicago, and my dad and his older sister, who was like 6 years older than him, like they used to do that on Saturdays. They would go to a Saturday matinee,
Mhm.
and with a bunch of other screaming kids in the theater or whatever, they
Yeah.
would watch like a feature, and cartoons, and the
Yep.
newsreels and all that stuff. And that was kind of a tradition in his life, which of course, we did, when I was growing up. Every Friday we go to some sort of new release. And so, like, my love, for news was because of my dad. My love, for film, because it was is
Right.
a love
Right.
for my dad, too. And speaking of, like, I should just get this pitch in here because we only have 90 seconds left in the podcast. Going back to the time that I have, that's away from school, and when the kids are gone and I put up the cape, like, none of my dreams are dead, dude. Like, I have projects on the side that I'm, in terms of screenwriting projects. I also have my Jewish softball epic documentary. Can I pitch that to you real quick? I
Yeah,
haven't
heck
told you
yeah.
about that
No, let's
before.
hear it. Yeah.
Okay, so Temple Shalom softball is done as a documentary in the style of Ken Burns baseball, and it's about a league in Dallas that was originally Jewish affiliated. It's just celebrated its 50th year, and it started, with 6 teams at a field park in Dallas, Churchill Park, that had like, poles in the outfield, and like hills that go up here, and like trenches that people would fall in. Um, and if you wanted to try out for this league today, Coach Nally, you would have to go out to the fields in Spirit Park, and you would have to try out for them. And they have captains who would rate you in terms of what round you should be selected in, 1 to 12. And there are 20 teams now,
Oh, wow.
240 dudes.
Wow.
And And this is some serious stuff. It's not like City League ball where you get like together your friends and you play for 10 years and you're all on the same team. It's a draft league. So each a year you are shuffled up with different people. So you might have a beef with somebody one year, but there's a chance they could be on your team next year.
That's pretty cool, man.
And it was originally like 75% Jewish, 25% non, because only so many Jewish dudes are playing softball. My dad included. But then now it's if it was like 15-20% Jewish, I'd be surprised. The demographics have changed. There might be more Venezuelans in the league right now than there are Jews. So and and
People might be
and
recruiting.
and the way that it's told in the Kenburn's baseball style, so Kenburn's, they kind of center around those championship games. We do the same because that one of the founders, this short dude named Bob Weinfeld, who basically looks like Casey Stengel, and he's like 98 years old. Um, actually, he might be 99 this summer in July. He kept a book of all stats and memoranda and other stuff, but when his Pirates weren't winning, the notes are not quite as like detailed. They're scarce. So we always go to Fishtail there. So I'll bring in like MLB iconography. So like the championship game, the first championship game the Dodgers won, right? I actually stole the Carlton Fisk thing that I know was Bo Sox, right? But in 1975, that was the thing, right?
Yeah,
So
heck
the
yeah.
game-winning home run, like I literally did with this guy with a wig and doing like this bit. And and so like tying in that MLB iconography, the whole
Heck
fishtail
yeah,
thing.
dude.
They wear funny wigs and mustaches in the championship games, but anytime we have the record, like I strictly go off the record. I mean, I go on the record. And then when there's no record, then we can do whatever. And it's just fun. And so it's like it weaves in like interviews from folks, from the league, leadership folks of the championship winning teams, some of the big figures. Like we had some dude set a home run record. So they play like, I think it's 22 or 24 games. We had some dude set the home run record, and it was like, is it 37?
Dang right,
30.
dude.
I got to go back and look.
Dang right.
But like, these dudes are serious
Yeah,
about it, but
I'd watch it.
But it's also a lot of fun. I'll send you a trailer.
Yeah, I'd watch it. That sounds really, really
And
fun and really,
there's
really
there's
cool.
7 innings. There's 7 innings in softball.
Um,
I've completed 2. I've completed the interviews for the rest, and then I'm like chipping away at like doing
I would watch
the
it.
reenactments.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, thanks.
It sounds fun and interesting. Well, that's all we have this week on the Dang Right podcast. I want to thank Max and everyone back there that makes it happen. I want to thank Mr. Kramen for being on the show and everything that Mr. Kramen
Thanks, Coach
does
Nally. I appreciate it, dude.
for all of Melissa and Melissa ISD.
Thank you, guys.
And maybe Trevor will be back from Vegas next week, and we can thank Trevor. So we'll see. But thank you again, and same time next week, Dang Right podcast. Come on.